Libya appeals to the UN Security Council to end the arms embargo. How new technology could allow smartphones to help diagnose HIV. And a South African director returns to the mean streets of Johannesburg for his sweet tale. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. The dangerous waters of the southern Mediterranean Sea have claimed the lives of at least 10 migrants from North Africa. The immigrants perished on Wednesday when their rubber boat overturned. Italy is struggling to accommodate migrants trying to reach Europe on small rickety boats. Italian ships have rescued more than 1,000 migrants from North Africa and the Middle East trying to navigate the Mediterranean since the beginning of the week. A spokesman for the Save the Children says many of those taken to safety are children.
They're part of a big group. Just since New Year's Eve, there has been over 7,500 people coming to Sicily. And many of them are children, and we know that a lot of them also are unaccompanied children. Of course, it's very hard and very dangerous for unaccompanied children coming like this.
Well, the United Nations says more than 200,000 migrants crossed the Mediterranean by boats last year. More than 3,000 died. The Italian government says it needs help from the European Union to cope with a massive surge of immigrants. UN-sponsored peace talks between rival Libyan groups have resumed Thursday in Morocco in an attempt to create a national unity government. On Wednesday, Libya asked the UN Security Council to ease or lift an arms embargo that is in place to enable it to confront the growing threat from Islamic militants who have already seized major oil fields. Libya is said to be seeking heavy artillery, including tanks and fighter jets.
The overall situation on the ground is deteriorating rapidly, and Libya can no longer afford to allow the political crisis and armed conflict that has gripped the country for much of the past year cannot to fester longer. Unless Libya's leaders act quickly and decisively, the risk of their country's national unity and territorial integrity are real and imminent.
Libya's Prime Minister went to Jordan Wednesday seeking help in building a coalition to help protect Libya from terrorists.
The purpose of my visit to Jordan is to coordinate the cooperation between Libya and the Kingdom of Jordan. I was honored to meet King Abdullah II of Jordan to coordinate the establishment of the Joint Arab Force supported by the Kingdom of Jordan, the Republic of Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in response to the request presented by the President Sisi to form an Arab force to fight terrorism and outlaw terrorist groups like Islamic State group and other groups.
Libya has been plagued with violence and political chaos since dictator Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown and killed in 2011. Islamic extremists have taken control of Tripoli and set up a separate parliament, forcing the internationally recognized government to flee to the east. We're turning now to terrorism. Some young Muslims are being radicalized in their bedrooms and now through internet. They can have direct contact with Islamic State or ISIS fighters. Analysts say the online extremism is spread by a prolific network of supporters around the world. Henry Ridgewell reports.
On a freezing February night in Istanbul, video surveillance cameras catch 3 British schoolgirls, 2 aged 15, 1 16, at a bus station on their way to join Islamic State. After an 18-hour bus journey, it's believed they crossed into Syria a few days later. What drove these high-achieving students to leave their families for a war zone, to likely become the partners of Islamic State fighters? Britain's lead counter-terrorism officer blames social media.
The change we've seen over the last few years is that these messages, extremist messages, are now pumping through the internet right into your child's bedroom.
Investigators say another British woman, Aqsa Mahmood, who had travelled to Islamic State in Syria, helped to recruit the 3 teenagers. It's a phenomenon that's happening with increasing frequency across the world as part of Islamic State's foreign recruitment drive for both male fighters and potential female partners, according to terror expert Shiraz Meher of King's College London, speaking at the Policy Institute, Chatham House.
Today, you can have a direct dialogue with a fighter. You can ask them what life is like on the ground. You can ask them how they got there. And that, in many respects, helps you overcome your own fears or whatever it is that's stopping you from going.
Meher says these online Q&As often centre around the impact on families back home.
How did you tell your mother that you came out here to Syria? How do you essentially get over and emotionally reconcile the fact that you're breaking her heart?
Islamic State propaganda also relies on a network of what Meher terms fanboys and fangirls.
We call them disseminators. And these disseminators are incredibly important insofar as, because they're not on the ground, they're able to aggregate large amounts of information from multiple sources and to spread it.
One of the most prolific disseminators lived in this apartment in Bangalore, India, operating under the Twitter name Shami Witness. He was arrested in December. The Shami Witness Twitter account, now inactive but still accessible, has over 17,000 followers. It included Islamic State propaganda, advice for would-be recruits, and messages praising dead fighters. The US Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, said Monday that his biggest worry was homegrown extremism inspired via the internet.
ISIL particularly is very slick, very sophisticated proselyting and recruiting, and they are very astute users of social media. And so this is a challenge for us as it is in Europe.
Security analysts say that extremist propaganda on the web must be countered using the same internet tools to prevent more young people from turning online curiosity into radicalised reality. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Well, the trial of suspected Boston Marathon bomber Zohar Tsarnaev resumed Thursday in a federal courthouse in Boston. On the first day of the proceedings on Wednesday, the opening comments included a surprise move from the defense. VOA's Caroline Trisuti was inside the courtroom and has this report.
2 years ago, bombs left Boston scared and stunned. Two brothers, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, were shown on surveillance video leaving backpacks with bombs at the Boston Marathon. The shrapnel killed 3 people and injured more than 260. Tamerlan died in a police shootout several days later. Dzhokhar was captured and is now on trial in a death penalty case. Some victims were called to the stand on the trial's first day. Others were watching.
I think he's an animal. He knew when he dropped that backpack there was kids, women, families.
In her opening statement, defense attorney Judy Clark shocked the courtroom. She agreed it is her client in the video carrying a backpack and leaving it at the finish line. But she said he was influenced by his older brother, who was, as she put it, into violent Islamic extremism and explored jihad on a trip to Russia. Prosecuting attorney William Weinreb said the defendant arrived at the marathon not as a spectator, but with murder in his heart, and said that Tsarnaev carried a bomb favored by terrorists because it was designed to tear people apart. Tsarnaev fidgeted and didn't react when Weinreb said he drove over his brother and dragged his body 15 meters during the police shootout. Melissa Babin was in the courtroom.
He seems to be pretty disengaged. He seems a little bit bored at times. At other times, he does seem to be paying attention, so it really varies a lot. It's hard to tell what's going on in his mind.
If found guilty, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev faces the death penalty. Defense attorney Clark has successfully convinced juries to save the lives of Ted Kaczynski and Jared Lee Loughner, notorious murderers now serving life sentences. This sole protester outside the courthouse said no matter what the crime, death isn't the answer.
And I believe that the state should not be involved with murdering anybody, which the death penalty is murder.
On the first day, it seems as if the defense changed the focus of the trial from is Tsarnaev guilty to will he get the death penalty? That debate is expected to last several months. In Boston, Caroline Trisuti, VOA News.
Well, for years, Ethiopia was known more for famine and drought. That is changing as we hear more about its fast-growing economy and its role as a regional peacemaker. Here's Martha van der Wolf.
Ethiopia is transforming rapidly. In the capital city, it's all about the construction of buildings and large infrastructural projects. And international headlines have also highlighted these changes. Not long ago, media reports about Ethiopia focused on war, poverty, famine and drought. Now the headlines focus more often on the East African nation's fast-growing economy. Foreign Affairs spokesman Dina Mufti says the Ethiopian government actively contributed to changing its negative reputation.
It's a phenomenon that we have had once in the past. It's something that we have put behind us effectively, and everybody works to make sure that that agony won't recur, won't come back again.
And it's not only the double-digit GDP numbers of the past decade that attract positive headlines. Ethiopia's role as peace negotiator for regional conflicts such as South Sudan is boosting the country's diplomatic reputation as well. And the reputation of being a relatively stable country with an emerging economy and a growing middle class is reaping fruits, bringing back home Ethiopians from the diaspora. Henok Assefa is one of them, running a consultancy firm. He says that foreign firms still need a bit of convincing to believe Ethiopia is also a place for business.
Investors that have never been to Ethiopia, it takes a while to convince them because their mindset in many ways is that this is a poor country where you go there to help people live a better life. They don't really see it as an opportunity so much.
But not everyone's lives are improving. The United Nations Development Programme estimates that a third of Ethiopians still lives in poverty. And right groups frequently criticize the country's human rights record. Opposition parties, such as the Blue Party, accuse the government of violating basic democratic principles. Blue Party spokesman Jonathan Tesfaye says Ethiopia's new and improved image is an illusion fabricated by the authorities.
The information comes from the statistic agency, and those guys are not to be trusted. And that's not only it, but the growth that we are having, the development or the bloom, whatever it is, it's only concentrated in Addis Ababa. If you go to the rural areas, they're lagging behind, and that's going to be very problematic in the future.
Images of poverty have damaged Ethiopia's reputation for decades. The famine of the early 80s was made famous through Band Aid, a collective of pop music stars raising money by singing Feed the World while showing images of Ethiopia. Marta van der Wolf for VOA News, Addis Ababa.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, how new smartphone technology could make HIV testing more accessible. Stay with us.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back. Health reporter Lino Mudu is off today. Well, advocates and experts gathered Wednesday here in Washington to commemorate International Women's Day. Held annually on March the 8th, the observance aims to recognize the global plight of women and their achievements across nations. Participants attending the United Nations Foundation's event discussed strategies to target specific needs in communities such as education and unemployment. To support and empower women and girls, former Malawi President Joyce Banda spoke about the need to continue to improve women's health and well-being. She says education is one of the ways.
What is it that we have achieved? How much more do we need to do? As far as I'm concerned, we have done a lot, we have achieved a lot, but it is also tragic that when we take stock this year of the MDGs, we shall find that those that we have not achieved are those that relate to women, MDG 3 and MDG 5. Maternal health, ensure that our girls are not getting married too early. Malawi has now passed a law that girls can only get married at 18, but also ensure that they are encouraged to wait. How? By sending them to school. Staying in school 4 more years, from 1 to Form 4, will delay her marriage and motherhood.
Well, diagnosing infections such as HIV requires expensive clinical tests. But now there is a new technology called Lab-on-a-Chip that is about to change everything. VOA's George Putich reports.
Smartphones are essentially pocket-sized computers capable of executing many complicated programs, from video games to navigation aids. Attachments called dongles further extend those capabilities. Scientists at New York's Columbia University have developed a lab-on-the-chip that, when plugged into the phone's jack, turns a smartphone into a tool for diagnosing infectious diseases such as HIV and syphilis. Sam Sia is Associate Professor of Biomedical Engineering at New York's Columbia University. He says early diagnosis may be a matter of life and death to patients such as pregnant women in rural parts of Africa.
By providing accessible diagnostics to these patients, they can get treated and their babies can actually be born and thrive and live. So it's really a matter of life and death if they don't have these diagnostics.
For 10 years, Sia and his team worked to develop the attachment they say can perform nearly as well as $18,000 laboratory equipment.
Instead of doing a blood draw, getting that sample sent to a lab, you can actually do it on the spot with just a finger prick of blood, and you get the result in 15 minutes with very similar quality as doing the test in a lab.
A small-scale testing of patients in Rwanda provided highly accurate results. Sensitivity in finding the target antibodies was 92 to 100%, while ruling out the people not infected was 79 to 100% on the target. Sia says the capabilities of the lab-on-the-chip attachments are not limited to sexually transmitted diseases or STDs such as HIV and syphilis.
We can certainly look at other STDs such as hepatitis and herpes and so forth, as well as other infectious diseases, including malaria and so forth, but also chronic diseases.
Sia and his team are now preparing a larger-scale clinical trial required for approval of the device by the World Health Organization. George Putich, VOA News, Washington.
Well, peace talks aimed at ending 15 months of civil war in South Sudan appeared to be deadlocked on Thursday, just hours before the expiration of a regionally imposed deadline for a deal. Hopes of an agreement were dealt another blow as President Salva Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar pulled out of the discussions, promising to reconvene later in the day. Tuesday, the UN Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution threatening sanctions against South Sudanese officials who undermined security or interfering with the peace process after Thursday. Well, for more on the status of the peace talks, VOA's John Tanzer joins us by phone from Addis Ababa. John, first tell us, have the talks resumed?
Well, the talks have been going on for the past 14 days, but today was a crucial day where the IGAD mediators met separately with President Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar. And an hour ago, the mediators walked out of their meeting with the rebel leader Riek Machar, and you could see from the body language that nothing was reached. And this 5 minutes ago, the chief mediator, former Ethiopian Foreign Minister, Ambassador Seyum Mesfin, spoke to the press, and he said that the two warring parties are not able to agree on the outstanding issues that they were supposed to agree on in this last final phase of the peace talks.
Now,
and he told reporters that it looks like there will be no signing ceremony tonight or tomorrow.
Now, John, that comes at a time when we know that there's a deadline for tonight, or at least today. What are they saying, the two sides? Are they concerned about the consequences?
Well, the two sides are saying that they want a peace agreement that is genuine and that addresses the root cause of the fighting in South Sudan. When I spoke to some of the rebel delegates, they're saying the government is not willing to compromise. And when I spoke to the government delegation, they're saying the rebels are putting new demands that are ridiculous, to use their words. So it looks like both sides are not agreeing on the issues of security, whether they should have two armies or one army, the issues of wealth sharing, whether they should share the wealth equally, the issues of governance, whether to have a president, prime minister, vice president, or president and two vice presidents with equal powers. So these are the issues that the two delegates are not seeing each other, face to face.
John, that sounds like things remain where they have been for so many days. Thank you all the same for giving us those perspectives. Viewers, John Tanza reporting live from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Well, oil spills in 2008 and 2009 polluted the waters around the town of Bodo, that's in Nigeria's southern river state. In January 2015, a settlement negotiated between the Shell Oil Company and the affected community put cash in the pockets of the townspeople. But how about the environmental damage? Chris Stein tells us more.
Just about everyone in Bodo is building something. But on the banks of the creeks that surround the community, oil laps at blackened ground. Therein lies the reason for the building boom. 2 oil spills years ago dumped thousands of barrels of crude into the creeks of this community, which depends on fishing for its main source of income. Bodo claimed the Shell Oil Company's Nigerian subsidiary was responsible for the spill and took the matter to court in Britain. Earlier this year, Bodo accepted a cash settlement that put money directly into the pockets of more than 15,000 people. But Sylvester Kogbara, High Chief of the community, says money cannot make up for a way of life that was destroyed.
It is not enough, and it can never be enough. I have mentioned it here, that in terms of Naira and Kobo, they can't pay enough. Because what of the generations unborn?
Residents received about $3,000 each from the settlement. Fisherman Giadon Agbara Timothy is using the money to build a brick house to replace the mud home his family lives in. But with the waters around Bodo saturated with oil and the fish either dead or too polluted to eat, he says his future looks bleak.
From the moment the oil spill occurred, we now live with no choice than being in that abject poverty that we were. We cannot go to the fishing, we cannot go anywhere to get anything to help ourselves. And the oil spill really cost us a whole damage.
You can still buy fish in the market in Bodo, but it is imported from elsewhere, where the water is cleaner. Some fishermen still tough it out. Marvelous Bonnie bought a new fishing boat with the settlement money. He now travels far from Bodo to catch the croaker and saltwater fish popular in its markets.
That 600 is now compared to my business, because I have my boat, my engine, and my boys. You can see now, this is one of the boats I just calved newly. This very one, out of the 600. And I bought engine, 15 horsepower, for the business. And this is my fiber. I used to do business transporting people to the other community. And the money is not enough to empower me enough to do that such business.
Shell has also agreed to help clean up the oil that's spilled around Bodo. Its residents say things will get back to normal only when its waterways are clean. Chris Stein for VOA News, Bodo, Nigeria.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. A new movie by a South African director raises questions about artificial intelligence. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Nigeria, Chadian forces seized the strategic town of Dikwa from Boko Haram militants. In Sudan, President Bashir is on the campaign trail, facing little competition and multi-party boycott of polls. And at least 10 North African migrants died trying to reach Italy when their rubber boat overturned in the southern Mediterranean. Finally, in Nigeria, energy company Seplat expects its gas business to contribute around a third to its profits over the next 2 years, up from current 10%. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Chris Brown is reportedly a daddy. Gossip site TMZ reported Tuesday that Breezy is the father of a 9-month-old baby girl with a 31-year-old former model. The embattled R&B singer has been on probation since 2009 following his guilty plea to assaulting Rihanna, who was his girlfriend at the time. He was jailed for 2.5 months last year for violating the terms of his probation. Well, next up, Oscar nominee Leonardo DiCaprio has inked a deal with Netflix to bring more socially conscious documentaries to the public. The deal comes after the success of the Oscar-nominated documentary Virunga, which focuses on the conservation work of rangers within Virunga National Park. DiCaprio produced that doc. The new deal will allow the actor to promote films that highlight environmental conservation efforts. Well, and finally, South African District 9 Director Neil Blomkamp is back. The Oscar nominee is betting audiences will fall in love with the robot with a hot, chirpy. The sci-fi venture tells the story of how a repressive mechanized police force combat crime, but the people push back against the robot by stealing a droid, a chappie, and reprogramming him to become the first machine that can think for itself. The film was shot in Blomkamp's home country of South Africa, and there is a special bonus for music fans. The film stars South African rave rap stars Ninja and Yolandi from The Anti-Word. And that is what is trending today. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa. That's between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. In American English, when someone responds to you by saying, "in your dreams," does he mean that you're actually dreaming?
Guess what? This weekend I caught a fish this big.
No way.
Yeah, it was huge.
In your dreams. There's no way you caught a fish that big.
In your dreams is a different way of saying, "I don't believe you," or "there's no way that's true." It is a way to tell people that you think they are making up a story. And this phrase is used in a playful manner, usually with a smile. Ah, in your dreams. In your dreams. In your dreams. And that's English in a Minute.